It's the fight game with Icewater and Puma. He's Icewater, I'm Puma. And today we're going to talk about a fight that, until it's kind of signed in stone, I'm a little leery of it. But I'm going to let you give the report to the people about a fight that you say that's coming up pretty soon in May.
Yeah, we've been hearing this for a long time about rumor reports between Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford. Been hearing a lot of reports. Terrence Crawford said he'll take the fight, doesn't matter where it is or what the weight is. He's been wanting it. The issue has been that Canelo Alvarez has said that he never considered it to be serious. One, because he says that if he fights him at 168, people are going to say that Terrence Crawford was too small. He's just going to be a bunch. He said, I can't win for losing. He's going to fight. He wants to fight him at that point. And then I think now all of a sudden, as Terrence Crawford mentioned about the weight might be too much for him. But now he's thinking, well, I'm a good boxer. Maybe I can fight him and it'll go along. But it comes to a point that Terrence Crawford always came up with the idea, was agreeing to it. Now it appears that Canelo Alvarez is entertaining more as well. And that's because now he said he wanted a certain amount of money for this fight. And I think that the prince or whoever will be from Saudi wants to make this happen, and he's willing to come up to whatever may be Canelo's demands. So with that being said, they're trying to push forward to see if they can negotiate and get this together for that first weekend in May at 168, which will be a phenomenal weekend. And they're trying to figure out where they will have it. They talked about Saudi Arabia, but I think really that they understand that where you need to have this is in Vegas.
Vegas, yeah.
So yeah, they have this, and it's going to do. The money is going to be phenomenal. There's going to be a lot of hype around it, and if the folks over from Saudi can make this happen in America, it really will shine a light on what they can do besides the other entities. And it's going to be a nonstop, whatever. It's going to be one hell of a weekend. Maybe one of them old school weekends like you used to have with Floyd was out there on a constant basis on that May weekend.
Yeah, and this is a fight that I've been wanting to see, that I've been kind of pushing because I think Terrence Crawford could handle that weight, even though, he had a little, trouble with the 154. But I think he's a fighter. I think that he will train his way into getting himself in the best shape because he's fighting against Canelo Alvarez. I think his hand speed and his boxing, smarts will really do him well in a fight like this. I'm just really skeptical if this is really going to happen. But I will say this: if this happens and Canelo beats Crawford, I will shut up about Canelo. I won't say anything bad about Canelo. I won't say it because what I've been saying all these years is that Canelo won't fight the best of the best. He will not fight the best of the best. So if he fights this fight and he beats Terrence Crawford, I will shut up about Canelo. I won't say any more negative things about Canelo, whether he's ducking fights or whatever. I won't say. It. This is the fight I want to see. I don't want to see him fight any more tomato cans. I don't want to see him fight any more fighters that we never heard of off the circuit somewhere. So I want to see this. I want to see this, and I will be. I'm a man of my word. I will say, you know what? He fought one of the best fighters out there. If he beats him, I'll shut up. But if he doesn't, it will prove what I've been saying all along. It will prove what I've been saying all along that, he's not as great as everybody thinks he is. He's just been propped up as a great champion. That's what I'm going to say. But I don't know. You're making all those faces. I want to see, what you got to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a first. A first on this show. A first. We've been doing this a long time, long enough. A first on this show where this gentleman has come in and said if they lay down the gauntlet and the guy that he likes loses, he's going to give Canelo Alvarez his just due. Interesting. 2025 is going to be one hell of a year. So with all that being said, I didn't want to see the fight at first because of the fact that the weight difference, right? The weight, and you got to think about it. Terrence Crawford started at 135, right? He's jumped to 154. So 154, that's 19 pounds. You do the math. You go to 168. That is a 33-pound jump at 168. I don't care who you are, even if you're growing as a growing young man or a growing boy or a growing man.
Now
That's
he's
a
at
lot.
147, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he went to
He jumps to
135.
168. That'd be like
Right.
21 pounds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So 135, 147, 154, 168. But the point of that is 135 to 168 is a 33 pound
Yeah. Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But after hearing about it, and Terrence Crawford has done pretty much everything he said he could do. He's shown you that he's capable. And if anybody can make the jump, it would be him. We've seen Roy Jones go from whatever he was light heavyweight to go to heavyweight, but it was to beat John Ruiz and win the title. But it was the right opponent. It was handpicked. And maybe Terrence Crawford sees something that others don't. Maybe he thinks he can his boxing skills, he can move enough to get around and then counter Canelo. Now I'm gonna make a point here. This might make this gentleman very uncomfortable, but I have to come back full circle. I take this in before I release this because I know he's a very intelligent young man, and I got to come correct. So this is why I had to think about these things before I say them. So here's what I find very interesting. Dennis Crawford is one heck of a boxer, and people that are smaller than him, he's able to punish them and catch them even at the same weight, right? But if we know Terrence Crawford is going to bounce around and try to counter and box a little bit, one thing we know, and I will say this before, I'm gonna call him the runner. The one thing the runner, Mr. Charlo, did with Canelo, stayed away from him after he got knocked down. And Canelo even mentioned that, hey, I respect him because normally Canelo comes in against like the Kelly Plants of the world and imposes his will after a while, catches you and lights out. So what I'm saying to you is this, and it might be far-fetched, but I'm throwing this out there. Crawford is a heck of a boxer. He's very mobile, moves around, versatile. After you watch the marathon or the running, the gazelle run by Charlo, maybe he says, I saw that fight, he moved around, he stayed away from him. I can do that. But now I'm gonna punch though. I'm gonna counter. Also, you watch the Bivol fight with Canelo. Bivol was more mobile. And he was able to do what you would think Crawford would want to do, even though he's not as big, but he's mobile and move around. So if you can stay away from Canelo, connect, win on points, a la Sugar Ray, maybe Hagler, stay away from the power and stay away from him, I think that's his shot. And I think that's what he's looking for. Is he going to engage a little bit? Perhaps. But I think deep down inside, he's thinking my best shot would be to be mobile. So it's not to pick on and say, oh, I want to tease my co-host about the Charlo thing, but it's interesting about how the versatility and the movement will play a large part, I think, with Crawford. And for as much as we talked about the running or whatever Charlo did, it shows you that you can't elude this man and not get knocked out. And now we saw it even more with Bivol, who was throwing back and won the fight. So no, now the point of this is Crawford said, okay, I can make the 168 weight, and maybe he doesn't have the pop that he has. I don't have to engage. I can fight a smart fight. And the main thing is, if I can fight a smart fight and basically make sure exist and survive what he's doing, I think I got a shot. And I think that's why Crawford is willing to do it. And now they're trying to make Canelo an offer financially that he can't refuse.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I said that a few weeks ago. I know last year that I think his boxing savvy, I'm speaking of Crawford, his boxing IQ and his instincts to me are much more superior than Canelo. Canelo's a brawler. He gets in there, but I think he's slower. I think he's more methodical. I think he tries to wear people down with his strength and with his aggression. And I don't see Crawford falling for that aggression and that slowness. I mean, he's quick as a cat. The only thing I worry about him putting on that weight, will he maintain that quickness and be able to counter, be able to slip punches, be able to put himself in a position and angles that Canelo can't get to him, but he can get to Canelo. And I believe he will figure a way out to do that. I also think that the reason why Crawford is willing to take this fight because I have a feeling that he's been sparring guys that are much bigger than him and been able to do this because I don't see him saying, hey, I can do this and not being there working on this in the gym. I suspect that he gets in there with guys that are 168 and above and has handled himself very well. So I don't see him having a problem maneuvering, moving out the way of those powerful punches because when Canelo throws those punches, he's throwing them from Mississippi. He's throwing them from Alabama. You can see them coming. And he's, you can, it's like a silent moment before those punches come where you need to get out of there. And some fighters aren't able to get out of there because they're either tired, they're battered, or they just given up. I can't see Crawford staying there and letting Canelo just punish him a la Charlo.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think that's what's going to make it interesting. It's a fight that the people want to see. I think Canelo knows that, and it's a fight that they're looking for major magnitude, particularly when the group from Saudi is really considering allowing that to happen in the United States in Las Vegas
Yeah.
because they know how big that date in May has been on Cinco de Mayo was for Mayweather for years. So people are really engaged, and even though Canelo tried to make it his day now, that to bring that quality of fight back is going to be second to none. You're going to see people come from all walks of life because they want to see it. And granted, unless there's another date, September maybe a little bit, but right now we know Cinco de Mayo is usually has been a great day for great boxing matches, especially with Mayweather. And what better way than to do this again? I mean, there's no losers here, particularly financially. No losers, and the fans win too. And they're going to come in. It's one of those things, and people don't understand this about what Floyd would do. Love him or hate him, you want to see him win or lose. He drew the people in. He
Yeah.
brought it. People would come literally from California all over just to say they were there.
Yeah.
They know they weren't going to the fight. Where were you? I was in Las Vegas. And the main thing you just want to go to the weigh-in. The weigh-in is bonkers. They were selling all kind of tickets and whatnot. I think this will be a high magnitude fight in regards to the event itself. It will be an event. It won't just be a fight, a boxing match. It will be an event the whole week. And I think boxing, Vegas needs this.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning towards September because you got to give Crawford, or I would like to give Crawford some time to put that weight on and get used to that weight rather than May. But either or, I want to see this fight. Now we've come up with some topics on this show. We want you to come up with some topics that we need to talk about. But we're going to talk about some vintage fights, and then I didn't talk to my man here about this, but I think the next fighter we should feature is the great Roy Jones. He's one of my favorite boxers out of Pensacola, Florida. And so in a future show, we're going to showcase the great Roy Jones. But a vintage fight that you thought about that I think is a great fight. I want you to talk about that fight, and I'll come up with my vintage fights that I want people to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna start. I was watching something the other day, and I didn't know how I forgot how much action was involved. And I think that a lot of people that are starving for real action between two fighters, very close, is something to watch. And that's uh, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns too. So they fought the first time, and Sugar Ray Leonard had issues with a detached retina, and seemed like he was going to lose the fight. Comes back and defeat Thomas Hearns late in the rounds. This is supposed to be more or less a continuation, if you will, of this these two guys going at it, battling, and it did not disappoint, particularly in the later rounds where you look maybe from round eight on. They were like slugging, trying to get each other out, and they both were in trouble. You have two older warriors, but it did not take away from the spirit of what these both men represented and what we knew them to be. And like it was like watching it was like old times. History kind of repeated itself where, Sugar Ray was coming on, Hearns was banging him. Hearns looked like he was going to get him out of there. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing if you haven't seen it, but they were banging around, and finally Hearns, the old stamina trick was coming on Hearns late in the round in the fight. Seemed like he was going to get caught. But they both were just giving all that they had. and you could tell this was probably going to be one of the last two great fights they had, and they were giving their all. But it's fully action packed, and I recommend you checking it out. You'll go, oh man, they banging. One was great as well, but number two was like they were older, and everybody like Thomas Hearns had a score to settle, and Leonard was like, nah, you detached my retina. It was like everybody had a reason to fight, and they did not disappoint, and they were great. It's when you bring two great warriors together, you know you're gonna get fireworks, and they did not disappoint.
Yeah, the reason why I like these two fights is because these were the top fighters in that weight class, and they weren't afraid to go at it. In today's fights, it may take years for this fight to happen, but even now, they're much older men. You put them in an interview, they're getting up, squaring off. They want to go. They want to do it a third time around. So at that particular time in history, these guys really knew that, hey, we're the best of the best. We need to put on a show, and I want to best you. You want to best me. Let's get it on. They didn't. They no hold bars. They went at it, and I appreciate that, so much because in today's fighters, they won't fight each other. They'll run around for years and not fight each other, and then wait till they're too old to fight. These fighters got it on at their prime, and even past their primes, they went at it.
No doubt, 100%. And I think that you want to have two guys go after it. They really, they both wanted to win. And even to this day, like you say, well, I really won that fight. I could have won that fight or whatever. And they're two great competitors. And that's what boxing is about. When you get the best of the best going against one another. And even though you may have your favorite, you still gotta say, man, was that a hell of a fight? At the end of the day, you go, man, damn, that was a hell of a fight. I mean, Ali Frazier's and all the other ones, when you see these fights that I was looking at a fight, I think it was the other day, was George Foreman versus Ron Lyle. Oh my God, they were like, oh man, it was just so crucial, so punishing one another, but they're trying to stand their ground. Two great competitors.
Yeah. My vintage fight or trilogy has got to be Ali Frazier. It's a fight that I watch every year, and they show it around Christmas time, and it's must see TV. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna watch it again tonight. And the first fight, I remember being very young and very sad because Ali lost that fight, and he lost it fair and square. It was called the Fight of the Century in 1971. The Who's Who was in the place to be at that particular fight because Ali was coming off a suspension. Joe Frazier was the champion at that particular time. There was a lot of heated debate on who was going to win this fight, and Joe Frazier came out victorious. But the Thriller in the Manila and the second and third fight was just, masterful. The last fight was so brutal that none of those fighters were the same after that fight. It was beautiful but sad watching that fight again because you knew the aftermath of that fight. Joe Frazier wasn't the fighter he was after that, and Ali was definitely not the fighter he was after that. But it took everything out of both of them, and Ali won the last two fights. But it just seemed like Joe Frazier would not stop coming. He would not stop coming forward. He wanted to win that fight, even if he was going to die. And Eddie Futch kind of stepped in and like, no, we're not going to do this. But I know I'm giving away for folks that haven't seen it, but it's worth watching anyway. It's like one of those movies, like, I'm going to tell you the ending, but it's worth watching the fights because there is a story in each fight that you need to see and how the tables turn, how these fighters who were great fighters, they were the top fighters in their class, they did it three times. Name me fighters who would do that today, fight three times, other than Tyson Fury and Wilder. Those when the heavyweights were heavyweights, and these guys were great competitors. And when they got inside that ring, it was a war. I know I don't want to kind of speak of war lightly, but those fights were actually wars.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think for me, as you said, the thing that made it the trilogy even more intriguing is because, like you, I was super young and big Ali fan, and I was young, and Ali was a hero for a lot of people. And then to watch Frazier win, that first one was like, as a kid, you don't understand it. Your hero's bigger than life. And then the heroes in Life magazine with all these pictures of him getting his butt whooped. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Get
throw him,
knocked down. Yeah, yeah.
you know, it was like you destroy a hero,
Right.
right? But the fact that Frazier was able to win that first fight says a lot. Then we come back into the second fight, right? And Frazier, as you said, does not stop coming. But it took Ali losing such a big fight after coming off suspension. And now I want my title back. I want to come back in there and do whatever. And then, of course, the third fight is just mano a mano. We both men here. We're going to fight one last time. And this will probably be it. But we're going to put it out there. And they did. So, again, two great competitors, two great legends fighting against one another. And they were the yin and the yang against one another. You know, they were like, you know, from the standpoint of they complemented each other, difference in styles. But they also, you knew that Ali knew what Frazier was going to do. He coming this way. Frazier knew what Ali was going to do, you know. But still, you're not dominating me. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go all, you already know, you might as well get ready, strap in, because we battle. Strap in. Because if you beat me, you got to bring a lot. It's not gonna be, well, this time I was able to do, no.
Yeah.
You put your gloves on, you put your shoes on, and they tape you up, and you come into the ring. You know you are in line for chaos,
Yeah.
and that's what that was.
And these were the days where they gave fights titles. The fight of the century, the Thriller in Manila. I mean, they gave these fights titles. I mean, because once you heard that title, even now, after watching, it's like for me watching Sanford and Son. I must have watched every episode of Sanford and Son 1,000 times, but I laugh every time because it's worthwhile watching. This is exactly where these fights, they had titles to them. And when you hear these fights, you go, it takes you back in time with some of these great fighters who you were with. I remember sitting there with my father watching these fights and with Ali, because that was his guy too. And it's like, man, that's the only, I guess, sports figures that we really agreed upon that we were going to like together, because he's a Cowboy fan. I'm a Steeler Giant fan. You know, he was a Boston Celtic fan. I was a Sixers Knicks fan. So it was like we could never get on the same page. But Ali, that was our guy. That was our guy. And I know we were both upset after the fight of the century. And there were a lot of people. I mean, we were walking around with sad, gloomy faces the next day, like, man, how could he lose? How could he? And then trying to justify that he probably won on points, but no, he lost. But he made up for it for the next two fights. But you know, the last fight they fought, they couldn't come out for the 15th round. And I remember Dr. Pacheco said, you know what? One of them would have died in that ring if they would have came out in that 15th round. And I believe him because, you know, he knew his fighter, and Eddie Futch knew his fighter. And he was like, I got to stop this before this guy dies out there. And they wouldn't let Joe Frazier come out there. He wanted to. If you could see when you watch the fight, see him sitting there in the corner like ready to cry because he wanted to go out there and fight and die on his shield. And if they don't make fighters like that anymore. Your last thoughts, man.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And sometimes you have to save a fighter from himself,
Yeah.
right? You know, you think about that where I think about fighters that fights like what was it, Meldrew Taylor,
Yeah.
and versus
Julio Senior.
Trevor Senior. And as much as everybody wants to blame Richard Steele, who was the referee at the time, says, well, it's only like 8 seconds left, and you stopped the fight. But guys, like the referee does not know how much time is left until you hear right. You hear that 10-second that knockdown. But what you don't understand is Meldrew Taylor was right there, and Richard Steele said, "Come to me." That's what they tell you when you get knocked down. Come to me, and he didn't move. He was like this, and you're supposed to walk forward, and he did not. And then that's when he waved it off. But with all that being said, you have to understand that with all these fights coming up and things like that, to see these great legends get into the ring, and there's always something that plays a part that people say it should have been better or somebody got in the way. It just shows you that how when you get great fighters amongst one another, fighting one another, anything happen. But Frazier and Ali, every time they got into it, they did not disappoint. So when we have great fights like Pryor versus Arguello, Arguello was a soldier. He would fight, do whatever. But the way that Pryor was able to do what he did against him, when you see that greatness in the ring, like we said before, Manny Pacquiao and the wars that he had with the with one Manuel Marquez, these fights just make you go on. Even one last thing I'll throw at you, which I thought was two amazing fights. You want to see more fights? Go into it, check it out. Oscar De La Hoya versus Sugar Shane Mosley.
Yeah.
To another great fight. These are things that really people want to see. When you want to see today what boxing really was exciting and why people got excited about the Livingstone Brambles of the world, right? You know, Ike Cortez. It's great boxing back then, man, with some names you guys don't know about. So what we're going to try to do for you guys now coming up in 2025, come up with some more old school fights and also some people that you may not remember or know of because we want to bring it to you. We want to do this, man, because we're tired of listening to other people. We're not all the experts, but then we got enough knowledge to tell you a little something that you might say, oh, I didn't remember that or that fight like that too. Because we love boxing and we tired of the shenanigans, people acting like they know something that they don't. Like you said, hey, we're not trying to say we the best, but you look behind, we got some things going on, they had something going on. So we know a little something. So your call, but we're gonna try to bring you some of the best, and we're also probably gonna start doing some live stuff too, because we want y'all to know we bringing that shit in 2025. Where you at?
He's Icewater, I'm Puma, and this is the Fight Game.